any related to that turning issue.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Lewis? Yep. Vice Mayor Lewis? Here. Mayor DeGolia?
Here.
Councilmember Weiss?
Here.
Councilmember Lummis?
Here. We have a presentation from the County Jobs for Youth.
Yes.
Good evening, City Council members. The Jobs for Youth program has a 33-year history of serving all youth 14 to 21 years of age with employment services. The program does not have any income eligibility requirements, so all youth can participate. In program year 2014-2015, Jobs for Youth served almost 2,800 youth, and 360 found jobs and internships. Our program services include job preparation workshops, one-on-one job counseling, resume assistance, and we provide youth with job and internship leads. Staff performs outreach to the schools, after-school programs, and local agencies to discuss Jobs for Youth services. In addition, Jobs for Youth counselors contact employers to obtain jobs suitable for youth. We have 4 offices in San Mateo County: Redwood City, Belmont, Daly City, and San Mateo. In addition to employment services, Jobs for Youth has 3 other components to the program. In 2005, the Jobs for Youth Scholarship Program was created to provide college and vocational scholarships to our 16 to 21-year-old program participants in need of financial assistance. The first year, 3 500 scholarships were awarded to youth. This year, we awarded 20 scholarships in the increased amount of $1,500 each. The second component is the Jobs for Youth annual fundraising event. This event is held in May and highlights our scholarship recipients and employers participating in our program. Our last event raised $39,455. Jobs for Youth also offers summer paid internships at the County of San Mateo for youth 18 to 21 years old. Internships have a duration of 10 weeks and pays $12 an hour. This past summer, the county hired 36 interns spread across different departments. Each year, we continue to partner with Kaiser Permanente, Metropolitan Transportation Commission, City of Daly City, San Francisco Airport, and Samtrans to coordinate unsubsidized summer internships. This past summer, Jobs for Youth and Walmart.com partnered to provide mock interviews and awarded 2 $500 scholarships to 2 top-performing youth who participated in the Prep for the Interview program. The Jobs for Youth program is funded by the San Mateo County Human Services Agency, San Mateo County Cities, and donations from individuals and local businesses. We also hold an annual awards fundraising event in May to kick off and raise money for the program. To assist us in raising funds for our scholarship program, we are kindly requesting a contribution of $570 from the town of Atherton, or an amount agreeable to the City Council members.
Any questions?
Have we donated before?
Yeah, Jobs for Youth is one we've had on our program, and as we went through the budget process last year, we identified some of these organizations, such as Jobs for Youth, that have contributions on behalf of the town, and the council asked that they come back for a presentation on, what kinds of programs and benefits they provide that benefit Atherton, in consideration of their request each year.
Was it at that level or?
Yes.
Was that-
Are there any youth from Atherton participating?
Yes, I have 17 participants from Atherton and 2 were placed in jobs and internships.
Great. That's pretty well represented given the size of the town.
Yeah, I don't really have a question, but I want to thank you for coming because we often get requests for donations and so on and so forth. And I really appreciate you do come because we don't know often where all the money we, donate to issues. And I think that you've got a good program. And
Oh, thank you.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So you put out an annual report, I appreciate what you
Yes.
just done, but
Mhm.
you put out an annual report, could you just send it to George and he could distribute it?
Sure.
Yes,
Okay.
that'd be great.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
I want to reiterate Terry's comment about thanking you for coming.
Thank you for giving me the
It's
opportunity.
important to us to hear from everybody that we support, and we're glad to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now at public comments, where people can speak on an item that is not on the agenda, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comments? You come up right there.
Would you like this?
Yeah, you can just hand that.
Thanks, sir. Great.
May I start, please? May I start?
Yes, please.
Yes, this is about, I think, egregious misconduct by an officer of Atherton. I have to make this very quickly. There's a lot of minute details, but I guess that'll be discussed.
Can you just give us your name?
Excuse me, Juan Reese from Menlo Park, California. Juanreese. There are a lot of minute details that help outline this entire situation, but time does not allow here. So I'll just give you basically the lion's share of it. I was driving down Selby Lane, about the appropriate speed. There was a lady who was traveling ahead of me a little slower. I went around her on the left side. I immediately saw an officer with his gun, his radar gun. I pulled right next to him because I knew that basically I had broken the law. He told me that I had violated some law as far as passing on the left, which doesn't exist. It's 26,127 controls about the lane changes. He said I was within 200 yards of a intersection. There's no such thing. It's a tunnel, which is by 100 feet you have to be in front of that to happen. So he started off with a mendacity. Then he says, okay, you're speeding. So he says 47 miles an hour. I don't think that was even true. So then I said, fine, gave my information so we can proceed with our day. He then comes back, Mr. Reese, you have a warrant out for your arrest. I said, I do? He says, yes, we have a Hispanic male, with your name, height, weight, everything, from Fresno, California. We have to make sure it's not you. I said, what of my phenotype resembles that of a Hispanic male? Is it my dreads? Is it my thick lips? Is it my African nose? Please tell me, what is it? He says, well, I just want to make sure it's not you. I said, fine, do what you have to, officer. He goes back to his car. He takes a little bit of time. He comes back. He says, someone's bringing a picture from the station. One of my sergeants bring a picture from the station to identify this is not you. I go, but I'm not Hispanic. That's the most salient point you have. I'm not Hispanic. So he goes back. He comes back. 15 minutes, I'm sitting there. I finally waved to the officer, could you please come here? What's taking so long? He goes, I'm waiting for this picture to come. So I said, fine. So about 20 minutes now, I'm still sitting there. Finally, he calls me out of the car, I think at the 23rd minute mark, and he says, could you please come back to the back of the car? At that time, I thought I was going to be arrested. He comes back to the back of the car. He shows me a restraining order. He goes, could you sign that you have acceptance of this? I go, I signed this a long time ago from Menlo Park PD. It's a family squabbles I have with my uncle. I received it in the mail. They know it. I talked to them yesterday. It's no problem. He goes, okay, you can leave. He gave me the ticket, then I left. But you have to keep in mind that I was giving a false reason why I was there. I was not free to leave. It was not a consensual stop. His first stop was the traffic ticket, which he had probable cause. Any other further investigation, you must have factual, articulable reasons why you're stopping me. I lied that I was there because I thought I was a Hispanic male. It's not an intelligent answer, sir. I was detained unlawfully at that point when he started to lie. And this is the reason this is going to a legal arena to be settled, because this officer was way out of line. And I came here, I could have just left it with Mr. Flint here, Chief Flint, but I wanted the city council and the legal council to hear this, because this is not going to go away very passively. The man was wrong. And also I called Mr. Lieutenant Wade, forgive me. We spoke on the phone and I said, can you tell me about this? He goes, you're right, Mr. Reese, because I recorded everything. Because you're right, the officer did do all this. We don't know why he lied. He hasn't given us any reason yet. Now, other than the fact, I'm a black male driving through a predominantly wealthy area, sir. Why did he pick me up? If I was a white male, last name Rubenstein, When he said, Mr. Rubenstein, we have a Chinese guy looks like you, we're going to hold you here. It would have never happened. It would have never, ever happened. I was driving innocuously through your city, not bothering anybody, sir. And this happens. This is blatant racism. And if, one more thing, please, Mr. Rick DeGolia, if I wasn't a trained person and reacted in a violent way, he would have had another incident where a black man was shot. It would have said I was violent. It would have said everything about me except that I was provoked. And that's what bothers me. And I called my friend here during that incident. I said, you know what? I'm scared for my life right now. This man may take my liberty without warrant. Please let me know if something happens to me. Tell my parents that I did nothing wrong. That's what bothers me.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you so
bringing
much.
it to us. We will look into it.
Thank you so much. My attorney will be calling you soon, sir. Counsel?
That's the lawyer.
Right there. Thank you, sir. Bye.
Are there any other public comments?
Good evening. I'm William Grindley, 151 Laurel. Thank you for having me here. The subject is my favorite, high-speed rail. Let me touch three things. The first is where are we on the Toss Fukuda case, which can stop the project. Secondly, some highlights of recent events in the authority. And third, briefly address what is all this going on in Northern California with high-speed rail meetings, right? Okay. First, we are literally yesterday, reviewing the briefs for the second part of our suit. If you remember, in August of 13, we stopped the state from using funds from Proposition 1A from 2008. And they appealed to the appellate court. The appellate court said, yeah, you came a little early because they can only get the funds under second funding plan. So we will recognize the facts that you have shown through. If you want to go through those, I can. But so everything went halt. Governor said, oh, no problem, we're full speed ahead. Well, I keep saying, Governor, show me the money. The second part of the suit, called 526A, it has three complaints. The first is they promised the voters a downtown LA, downtown San Francisco ride with no legislative or voter approval in 2012. They shifted it from San Jose to San Fernando. Some say Burbank, but it doesn't matter. Where they could do that? The Constitution says you have to get approval to do that. Secondly, they have always promised the voters you could go downtown to downtown in 2 hours, 40 minutes. Another Atherton resident you may know, Paul Jones, has done a marvelous analysis of that and shows that the minimum, even going down the Tehachapi's at 220 miles an hour, think of that, going down the Tehachapi's at 220 miles an hour is 3 hours, 18 minutes. I'm okay that they say that if the board of directors rides the first trains coming down that at 220 miles. And the third part, which I've been most involved with, is section 2704 subsection 8J under AB 3034 says that they cannot have an operating subsidy. We have very solid evidence that every high-speed rail system in the world has operating subsidy. It's very complicated. I'm not going on into it here. So we are pursuing. Timeline, and I think it's 2nd of November, our what's called opening brief has to go to the Attorney General. And a month later, the Attorney General comes back with a response brief early January because we have Christmas in there. We go back with what's called a closing brief. February the 11th, the court will hear oral arguments, and we expect the decision sometime in April, May. We're sure the Attorney General will go, file for appellate court. We will, if we lose, we don't expect it. So that's where we are. Second, over the last, actually months, but let's take the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, the authority had their, what I refer to as the monthly trough feeders ball, because that's the only people who go to their meetings, people who want money from them. And it was amazing to watch. They had, in late June, issued requests for expressions of interest in investing in the project. They got back the same answers they did in June of 2008, which is only with a revenue guarantee or private investment money come into this project. They look shocked, they look stunned. Well, no one less than Goldman Sachs told you that 7 years ago. All right, and so they sat around. Chairman Dan Richard tried to put a nice spin on it. Mike Rossi, if anyone you know here, ex-Bank of America banker, he sat there with his head in his hands going, we have nothing, we have nothing. All right, so that was very interesting. The local gang around here got copies of all the responses after some pushing and tugging and reading the law to the public records request people in Sacramento. And the other night, I sent out an email to 30 of the 36, the other 6 you couldn't get emails on, and showed them that on page 30 of the 2014 plan, the most recent, they say they want the private sector to invest roughly $8 billion in putting the rails, the electrification signaling system, and by inference, rolling stock on top of what they're going to build, which they refer to as the substrate. And incidentally, on page 31, it says, while we'll take all this money, private sector are going to give, the state will own all those assets. Now, how many of you guys are going to go for that one, huh? I ask, what world are these people operating in? So that's very interesting. It may be that reality is hitting home. We don't know. We just do our bit. Third, you probably heard that there have been meetings in Palo Alto, Belmont, Burlingame, down in the Antelope Valley, etc., about continuing to build this thing. Well, you don't have enough money to get the Bakersfield, even if we gave you back all the federal money. And you have a deadline of September 30th, 2017, and what you haven't spent, you have to give back to the United States Congress. That's a law. You can't get around that. And so we sat down and talked about this about a week ago. Basically what they're doing is a very crude attempt to spend all that federal money as quickly as they can. And they're trying to buy future influence with towns and cities by talking about all the wonders that high-speed rail is going to bring to you. But for the time being, and probably for the lifetime of your grandchildren, it's not much to worry about. It's all puff. They're just trying to dump the money because we have 3 legs to our stool. Our own work here by Mike Brady and others up and down the peninsula. What I handle also is a Washington connection. I will meet with several congressmen on November the 2nd in Washington. And third are the farmers, homeowners, and businessmen in the San Joaquin Valley. And the farmers are holding on. They're going, do you want it? You come get it by what is called eminent domain. Thank you very much. Eminent domain. And their whole land or property acquisition process came to a grinding halt in April. So it's a project that should have gone away a long time ago. It is all about spending federal money because after we stopped them from using state money, they changed the contract between the California High-Speed Rail Authority and the Federal Railroad Administration so they can spend federal money first. All right? They are blowing people from Wyoming, Maryland, South Carolina, etc. They're blowing their money off and trying to, nobody knows what they're up to. But it's very interesting. Sorry, go ahead, questions.
No, not a question. I was going to suggest that we schedule on our agenda a report from you on this once you've gotten more information either from your meetings with the congressman or when the cases are actually heard in February.
Yep.
So that if we schedule, we can give you more time.
That's fine.
But we can't do that now because it's in public comment and we have to keep all the public comment at the same period.
Super. Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Any questions? All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lynn.
I've only been at this 5 years, 6 months, and 4 days.
47 minutes, 67 seconds.
Okay, next item on the agenda is city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. You have the written report in front of you. I did answer a few one-on-one questions earlier this week. Nothing of any significance changes anything in the report. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
So, all of the Twitter hashtags,
Yes.
is that generating any, are you Twittering a lot?
I'm tweeting a lot on behalf of the town, and I'm using the town's Twitter account as well. I haven't yet had any feedback on it, but we've gotten a few tweets retweeted. Peninsula Clean Energy has retweeted ours a couple of times. I've retweeted Valerie Gardner's sustainability tweet that she posted once or twice. So, yeah, The town has, those are hashtags. Let's see.
Oh, you're talking about how many tweets?
Followers. So my African CM has 83 following, 15 followers. So that's not great.
It's not so good.
But it will be. African has 75 followers, and we're following 36.
Does Bill
Nearly 100.
follow you?
Bill does not.
Nearly 100. It's not a tweeter.
I know, yeah.
But as we evolve, we develop new hashtags and hopefully get some feedback on it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Now I'm tweeted out.
I tweeted.
Moving on, the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Does anybody, the consent calendar covers items 8 through 12. Does anybody wish to pull any item from the consent calendar? Does anyone?
Yeah, I just would like to make a comment
No problem.
on 12. And I did speak to George about this. I was going through the detail on all these streets. You know, behind the staff report, there was the detail on the number of collisions and things like that, and how many collisions were due to speed. And while I'm comfortable with the decisions we're making on all the streets, including Valparaiso, because in the area that's highlighted, there is actually a school 25-mile-an-hour signs there that require the speed to be slowed down. But Marsh Road came to my attention that there had been a substantial number of collisions or accidents, and we know of several just recently. And it occurred to me that perhaps it might be worthwhile for us to reconsider, either now or at a future date, bringing that speed limit down. Because, and if we patrol it, we can get the overall speed limit down, I would think. It just seems that a large number of accidents do occur on that road, and perhaps a slower speed limit might help that. And as we know, people are riding bikes down there, et cetera. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Go ahead.
So, it's a confusing road as it is anyway, because, in the Menlo Park area, it's 35 miles an hour. And so you've got two different speed limits already, and, our section is pretty short. So if we post 25 miles and then it's posted 35 miles, it would be nice if we're gonna try to, manage that road or that section of road between Middlefield and, I guess the 101 interchange is what you're thinking about.
Yeah.
To kind of maybe, work with them to kind of develop something
Right.
that would,
Yeah.
so that it's more consistent.
Well, it should be consistent. I agree with that, but our part is the dangerous part because we have that the channel there. And, the road's just one lane, and there's no place to go if you're leaving, if you're going
Yeah.
fast. And so it was just a comment for us to reconsider, perhaps, in either going forward and for the chief to hear and city manager and yourselves, because that's the only one that really stood out as potentially a problem for, especially in looking at the detailed reports in the back.
Can I ask the chief? Chief, I'm sorry, just in your recollection, do you recall if any of the accidents that have been on Marsh have an associated factor of speed in there?
I'd have to look at those, but I know that the ones into the couple that we've had recently into the creek, the drainage canal, have been DUI. So
If you look on the engineering speed survey, it actually states the number of collisions over the last 6 years and the number of collisions due to speeding. And it's true that, I think what Bill points out is, it's well taken in that there's by far more collisions and collisions due to speeding on Marsh than anywhere percentage due to speeding on Marsh is quite a bit higher than on Middlefield.
Would be aware of, should I be aware of it?
Yeah. Thank you.
Does anyone from the public wish to pull anything from the consent calendar? Okay, hearing none.
Do I have a motion to approve items 8 through 12?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the September 16 and October 7 meetings.
No, we're going to the regular.
Oh, sorry, just did.
Number
We're on
13.
number 13, which is approval of the resolution updating the contract limits for public works projects.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you have the written staff report. The item basically amends our existing resolution regarding bid limits for public works construction project only. It doesn't relate to goods and supplies or professional services. The resolution that's in there, the item number 7 on that resolution, the prior resolution had 7, 8, and 9 where it delineated out the specific open market versus informal bidding versus formal bidding for public works contracts. Revision combines all of those into item number 7, which just basically says we'll continue to comply with the state's Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act with respect to limits for public works contracts and set those limits accordingly. The city attorneys advise that the limits have changed over time. It results in a little bit of inconsistency if we have actual numbers in the resolution versus just saying to be consistent with state law. To remain consistent with state law and eliminate the inconsistencies, we've changed number 7 as I just articulated. The resolution used to spell them out. The current limits for public works contracts are up to $10,000 for the force accounting open market, $10,000 to $50,000 for informal bidding, and $50,000 plus for formal bidding. State law now provides the limits as up to $45,000 for force accounting open market, $45,000 to $175,000 for informal bidding, and $175,000 plus for formal bidding. Again, these are just the limits. We still have to follow all the bidding requirements. In our purchase ordinance, changes do not affect any other portion of the ordinance, only affect public works contracts. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions as well as the city attorney.
Anyone have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, can I just point out, these numbers aren't really artificial numbers, they're not like Ouija board things. These are set by a committee in Sacramento that apply kind of to big cities, little cities, everybody, based on the costs of, the actual costs that they've surveyed for public works projects. So like paving a road is paving a road. It might cost more in one place than another, but the whole concept is that these limits cover things. There is a downside for us complying with this, and that's the Public Works Department has to go out and get a list of contractors that are willing to bid on these projects, which, by the way, is going to be very easy because there's lists for cities around us. Once they do that, the efficiency, the cost savings, the time savings. A good example, across the street where there's a building that had some demolition to be done to it. But you can't do anything in public works for $10,000. So it automatically kicked it into a higher level. That's when we started investigating and found that we hadn't changed ours in a long time. So that was the background behind it, and it wasn't, it's just basically bring us up to the times.
I've got a quick technical question, I think, Bill, for you, which is, the 2012 ordinance refers to the very first whereas clause. We repeat in both. And it refers to a new ordinance in 2012, which is probably no longer new in 2015. Is that accurate? I find that a little confusing. What are we referring to there?
We adopted the purchasing ordinance that we have right now was totally rewritten in 2012, mostly between the bills. And it was brought us into the correct century. The other one before that was a little out of date.
I guess my point is much more specific, which is just, in 2012, you referred to a new purchasing ordinance, the first whereas clause.
Yes.
Now in 2015, we should probably refer to that as 2012 ordinance.
That's the old one.
Yeah.
Both are resolutions, but yes.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And we can,
Yeah.
Let's Smith that.
The ordinance changed the city code. The resolution just set the limits. That's why this is it's confusing because it talks about an ordinance, but this is a resolution. The ordinance says the limits will be set by resolution, so it's easy to do.
Understood.
he's just suggesting that we're not referring to 2012 as new anymore.
Yes.
had that original ordinance, the numbers that were there were fine. And I don't argue with the fact that our current city manager provides an extreme amount of transparency. So this is my comments are not related to the situation we're currently in here and now. Nor do I, dispute Bill's comments that, hey, numbers change over time, there's inflation, people always are looking at the thing, and the numbers will change. I'm not a big believer that we should be beholden to everything that comes out of Sacramento. They are trying, just like we see in ABAG and other, committees and JPAs in the area, we are beholding in many cases to the needs of the larger organizations. And I think that really, while I don't have a problem with the 45K number, I do have a problem with an informal bid process going up to $174,999. I think that that's awful high. And I think that really, before we rush into just saying, hey, we're going to be beholden to whatever the state has, that we at least consider, are these the right numbers for the town of Atherton? I understand that even the major projects that we have on our plate today exceed those numbers, but that won't always be the case, and this city manager won't always be here. And so what I would like to at least suggest is that perhaps we delve into these numbers a little bit more and just have a longer discussion on those after thinking about them, and potentially continue this until we have some time to do that versus rushing into approving higher numbers just because the state seems to think that they are. I agree with Bill and with George that the state has moved on and maybe there's some inconsistency and we want to clean up our procedures, but just to change the numbers at such high number I think is a little foolhardy. Our job is to make sure there is proper transparency, not just today, but well into the future, regardless of who's in the management seat. And so I would suggest that we can continue it and have some further discussion on it. The results may be the same, but that would be my suggestion, and I hope that others would support it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I don't have a bottom out, so to speak. I don't really care what the number is, but let me explain a little bit. And it might help Councilmember Whitmer and others understand. In order for us to sign up for this Uniform Act, part of it, we have to abide by certain things. There are more bidding constraints under the Uniform Act than under the other parts of our purchasing ordinance for formal bids. The informal bids, it's a name, but you still have to have this bid list. You still have to do all the specifications. And the city council is going to see the numbers every month that the city manager has expended on public works projects. And if there's something that approaches the $175,000 limit, it would shock me if the city manager, whoever the city manager is, because of the fact that there's a state commission that can come in and look at these numbers to make sure you're complying with their program. It would surprise me if those numbers weren't shared with the council ahead of time, because, first some of them might be shocking, but street resurfacing for instance, one street, or work on the modular building across the way. Things like that kind of are time sensitive, have kind of hamstrung us for a long time. And then we found out that we weren't really hamstrung if we've been following the act that we approved back in 2012. So that's why we put these numbers in front of you, because it more reflects the reality of today. But of course the council can do what you see fit.
Just get a clarification from the city manager. Could you just talk to me a little bit about the budgeting process? I have some comfort with the fact that I believe we will have seen these projects. We, the council, will have seen these projects a couple of times before. Can you walk us through
capital projects through the capital improvement program? Mike puts together the whole budget on the 5-year process, and you approve as part of your current year budget every single capital project. And then those projects come before you again, particularly if they're formal bids, and they gotta come out and be advertised. You see the plans and specs, and you get authorization to bid, and then you see them again when you award them. So you see them all the way along the line.
But in this case, $174,900 project.
not see that bid.
You would see that, as part of the budget process, but you wouldn't see the bid spec before it goes out to bid, correct?
Would we see it, so we wouldn't see it before it went out to bid?
Only through the budget process. You would designate, and I can't spend it unless you approve it, but you designate, bicycle pedestrian improvement programs for like, striping for class 3 lanes. If that was gonna be $174,999, that was the estimate. You would see that as part of the budget process allocation. But then when the project actually, came to fruition and we needed to do it, we prepared the plans and specs, we put together the bid package, we do informal bids, we get them back in our report.
And if they turned out to be 175,000 or higher, then we have to stop right there, go back and go through the formal process, which requires the council approval, publishing, putting them in the trade newspapers and things like that. They're more expensive, but more importantly, we don't have a lot of staff, and it's labor intensive to do a lot of this stuff, and the bids are somewhat of a problem when they get to that level.
And if the budget had been higher and it turned out that in fact the bid could be less than 175,000, then we would have just seen it in the budget process.
By that time, you would have seen it, it would have gone through the formal process, and it would have been, hey, good for us.
If the estimate for the project is $250K as part of the budget cycle, and you see the project in that manner, we're gonna prepare it as a formal bid, because that's what we believe the project's gonna cost. If it comes in at $174,999, you've seen it.
Yeah. And isn't it true also, I mean, most likely you're gonna inform us if something.
My job depends on that, yes. But as Bill points out, that's the current situation.
Yeah, I'm not complaining about the
Right, well,
Right.
and in the same accord, we can always change this later, so.
Yes,
I mean,
it's a resolution.
It doesn't work, and if there was something coming down the pipe and you saw it, the way our purchasing ordinance reads, if you saw something that was coming and there was, you wanted to debate, and there was some, maybe Bill looked into it, and said, this doesn't look right. How could they bid this at $160,000? It looks like it's gonna be more or something. Council could, so we want to see this, we want to see this, we want to have a hand on this, we don't want to make this go through the formal process. Take more time, spend more money, but it's worth it for this project. We can do that under the current ordinance.
Correct.
So two questions. One is there any obligation that we have as a common law city to use this Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Code?
Well, as a general law city, we don't have to use it. It's there for us to use because it's efficient, cost effective, and saves lots of time.
But we're not obligated.
We're not obligated to do it. We can go
We
back.
can set our own limits.
Well, the limit then, the maximum limit goes to $5,000. It goes down, not up.
And there's one other caveat that City Attorney and I were chatting about earlier that I mentioned to him, is many of the other surrounding communities use this state-driven process. So if someone's gonna come in and do a project in Atherton, and it's $50,000, $55,000, they've gotta jump through a number of hoops to do that project versus going to Menlo Park to do the same project, where they don't have to jump through all of those hoops. It might result in a different bid.
And it's a pretty competitive industry right now.
Yes.
And is there any urgency to move this month versus next month?
No, it really came about because we had some projects that were, we thought were minor projects that popped into the formal range that were gonna take a lot longer, such as the demolition across the street. We were worried that it would be more than $45,000, the current limit, or $50,000, whatever it was. And so, no, but whenever you get around to it, we're gonna be facing the same litany of projects coming forward, some of which are more time sensitive than the others.
And at that point, when they do hit that or get close to that, everything stops.
Because right now we're subject to the limits that we adopted in
Before,
the past.
yeah, the ones that are shown in the new ordinance,
The new
the resolution that shows them.
Right.
I think we should move this on. I think we have the ability to revisit it, if we, have a concern going forward.
And if you would like,
Yeah.
I mean, we bring a lot of things back every year as part of the budget process. I'm happy to bring this resolution to you every year.
Yeah.
We'll bring the fee resolution back, we can bring the purchasing ordinance resolution back.
It sounds like the one area of concern is the $175,000 number between the informal and the formal bid, and maybe that should be a lesser number. That's your concern.
That's my concern.
Do you have a number in mind?
Well, I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about a number, you know, because I thought it should be a joint discussion, and that's why I said maybe we could have a continuance just for 2 weeks and discuss it very briefly at the next meeting and decide. But that's why I suggested a continuance, because, yeah, I just didn't wanna just read the report and say, yeah, okay,
I
change
guess,
the numbers.
I know, but it just seems like whatever number we come up with would be an arbitrary number, you know, based on, you know, our stomach for it or whatever, and not really based on like what the state has, done its research on and, benchmarked it.
Well,
So
my concern,
that's,
yeah, my concern was that the state generally tries to work very closely with the larger communities, as well as all communities, but you know, they're just like, you know, in the JPAs, you know, we're generally beholding and we have to pick up the tab for a lot of decisions that are made really on the part of the large communities here.
Let me see if I can correct that.
Okay.
Almost every single large city, in fact, I believe every single large city in the state of California is not a general law city. They're all charter cities. And including some cities, small, I think Sand City is a charter city with 95 people. This is designed for smaller communities. This is designed for communities that don't have the staff and the wherewithal to go out and do these, and again, it's only public works projects. Because we understand that, you know, those infrastructure things are important to the community, and you've seen how sometimes these things just snowball into, it looks like it should go fast, and 6 months from now, we're still talking about getting it through. That's what this, in fact, I should have given George the report I got from the committee that sets these numbers, and basically the committee is explaining why this is there. It's efficiency, cost effectiveness, and an easy system that still has transparency and competitiveness. You still have to bid the project. And that's why the ones in the middle, you're still bidding. We bid right down to $10,000 now on public works, and that's just an absolute, no offense, that's an absolutely absurd number. Now, any number that you could come up with will not be based on anything other than looking at the project list that George put out this afternoon and saying, well, yeah, I think these are okay, or these wouldn't be okay, and doing something like that. But you can't, the reason this is written the way it is so that in the future, as the state committee looks at the cost of construction cost index and things like that, that these things rise so that cities don't have to go out and keep changing their fee schedules. That's why we put this in there. You certainly can put whatever number you for more comfortable.
So let me make a suggestion and see if this works for everyone on the council. I think that we could go forward and accept this. This is the uniform public code for general law cities, but in connection with our mid-year budget review, I think we could look at this 175,000 number, which is really the break line between formal bidding and informal bidding. And the issue would be, should we move it down to 150,000 or 125,000? I think that'll give us a couple months to talk about it and think about it. Would that make sense?
Well, perhaps a different variation of that is bring it back at mid-year, but at mid-year, identify for the council what CIP projects are going to be undertaken in the next 6 months that fall within that mid-range. And if the council feels that any of those projects need to be done on the formal side versus the informal side, kick them out. They come to the council.
Hopefully the Marshall Channel, repair will be.
Well, that's well over.
I know, but I mean, there's little parts of it.
If you can keep it below that mark.
If I could make just a quick suggestion. You know, I understand from the list of the report percent out, you know, obviously we're not really looking at a whole lot for this year. So, as opposed to doing something at mid-year, which is just really in a couple months, why don't we say, since we start the budgeting process in March, that one of the key things we'll do at the March meeting is review this number and see if we wanna change it. So that gives you a little breathing room that you can get going on projects now, but that's the appropriate time that perhaps we would relook at it. I'd be comfortable if we can do that.
As part of the CIP process for that.
Yeah, that's the initial part of the CIP program.
I think that's fine, but I also think at mid-year, when we're looking at any of the CIPs, let's just call out those that
Okay.
would fall into this range, because we may decide we'd rather have the department bid.
Sure.
So then, okay, I'm comfortable with it, given those four areas.
So at this point, I'd like to make a motion.
Let's ask the public if they want.
Oh, is there any public comments on this item?
We did get a public.
Yeah, did get a public.
Quick move before we say.
No comments.
Bob,
You're it,
Bob,
you're
the
it.
public.
Bob, you're it. Okay.
So I'd
Go
like
ahead.
to make a motion to approve the resolution, number, superseding the 2012 resolution, updating contract limits for public works projects, for consistency with the state's uniform public construction cost accounting procedures, and, direct staff to bring this back to us in, mid-year budget cycle.
To return projects of significance to you at the mid-year cycle
Yes.
and to return it part of the CIP budget process.
Right, for reevaluating the limits.
Great. I'll say that.
With the change in the whereas.
In the where, yes.
It's important. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. Okay, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is approval of resolution governing town committees.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This resolution makes changes to the CCAC charter, eliminating item I on the list. The discussion at the council study session supported only this sort of a change, noting that via clear direction to the CCAC at the meeting was really all that was needed. No other changes were necessary. However, the primary purpose for returning the resolution this evening is to make the requested changes to the BPAC charter, adding the chair or alternate as a liaison from the Transportation Committee, and providing the chair and vice chair of BPAC be Atherton residents. Since we're bringing the resolution back tonight, we also are recommending that change to eliminate I within the CCAC's charter, which the council supported. That concludes the staff report.
Great. Any questions? No questions? Any comments?
So I was just gonna, just make sure all of this is uploaded and current on the website.
I agree.
That all the.
Maybe before we come to our comments, we'll see if there's any public comments. No public comments, okay, Bill.
During the CCAC discussion, and I'd spoken with George about it, I had thought that we had discussed F, and I thought we had also discussed A. Now, on the discussion on F, there was comments from members that said, yeah, we can keep F, but we've gotta make sure that they, it's eyes in but noses out on the design, and as long as that's well communicated, then that's fine. A, I had brought up that we should drop that, and I didn't hear anybody say no, because it says identify the planning processes by identifying key issues, working with the master plan, and we're not working on the master plan anymore. The master plan is done, so as we're updating this, perhaps A should be removed, and we start with B as A and move on down. So that was my comments with regards to that section, and secondly, I wholeheartedly support the Transportation Committee change, as well as what we've discussed with regards to the having, since we can have non-residents on the bike pedestrian master plan, and actually we do have non-residents on it, I think it is important that the leaderships on those, that committee are Atherton citizens.
Quick comments?
Well, as far as the CCAC, revised that master plan, and going through schematic design, it still may be revised a little bit more. It's a process, and I think that the CCAC committee is critical in having that perspective and being able to work with staff to identify key issues that need to be addressed.
I'll make it, I actually thought that at the study session, the piece that we discussed was in G, which says, once the project's underway, the CCAC will continue to work with staff as appropriate to provide feedback on project priorities and direction.
Right.
And I thought we got comfortable that that was okay because it wasn't guiding staff in any way, it was just giving feedback. So it's still a totally staff-driven
Right.
deal.
Okay.
And I think that was fine. With respect to A, I don't have any more to say.
I just think we need the master plan, I agree that there's changing a couple of things here and there, but the master plan is done. We really need to put a stake in the ground for the most part, and stop spending money in that redoing the master plan. And that specifically says issues regarding the master plan. We're now in conceptual design, we're actually in schematic design. And so yes, some things may move 2 feet this way or 3 feet that way based on lobby size, et cetera, but that's not changing the overall master plan of the area. But, you know, I'm not gonna make a big issue about it. I did bring it up.
Anyone else?
I would just say that it doesn't harm to hold it. It's not going to hurt us to leave A in if you guys still have some work related to the master plan. I don't think that it's going to make a major impact.
I don't think there's any work related to the cap plan.
Right.
And I thought what Elizabeth was referring to was sort of a more generic concept of planning,
Right, master planning.
which
Yeah.
certainly there's some of that happening, but there's not going to be any discussion of the master plan. It's history.
Because that's history, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's the master, it's,
Master concept.
right. I'd like to leave it in.
No, my only comment on this is that I want to be sure that, as we're discussing this in public, we're saying a lot of things that are implicitly critical of the Civic Center Advisory Committee in some ways, and I want to make sure that that message doesn't get out. I mean, I want to be, that we appreciate all the work that's done, a lot of great work's been done, and it's, you know, we appreciate the time people put into it. So I just want to stress that point, so that even through this conversation,
Yeah.
we're clear.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's implying criticism. It's been an incredibly hardworking and well-coordinated group. And they've done a lot of work.
Yeah.
There's still a lot more work to do, but
Yeah.
they've done a lot of work.
And we don't want anybody to quit.
And
No.
especially the architects, right? We're gonna keep moving this on, so, I think we should just accept it the way
So that's what
staff
it
has
is.
put it together.
Yeah.
Just it was basically, there's no action items, great deal of discussion relating to, particularly the west side of the county and the kind of services being delivered to them.
Kind of the east-west axis.
That was the big chunk of the discussion, and what staff was very clear about is that they need to make some money and money driven by the volume of traffic. And there's very little traffic coming in from Half Moon Bay or otherwise, and it's a difficult situation to deal with. There was very little that addressed any applicant considerations.
Great, thank you.
Just pushing us back.
Just sort of leave it to make the.
I'm wondering if there's any closing public comments.
You do know the Giants aren't in the playoffs anymore, right? You know that, right? Yeah.
I think he's seeing the clock tick.
How are the Cubs doing right now?
So, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I think you're second.